so that's looking good. And then we'll go flip the board.
So let's start with the tactic first here.
Okay, let me.
That's probably a kind of a cool one to review.
Okay. Um, okay, let's see. I think we're all good. So I'll go like this. Give remote control. All right, we're all set. What are we looking at, Yorgi?
Well, we would like to continue with our Bobby Fischer chess legacy concepts here, and
Cool.
this is actually just a simple tactic. I hope everybody enjoys it. It's just a lot of fun. This is a game that Bobby Fischer played against a chess player that I personally don't know much about. It's Angelo de Camillo.
It's a
Sounds like
puzzle. I love
it's a
puzzles. So,
puzzle, yes.
okay, let's see here.
And Bob Fischer was white here, and his opponent just surrendered the d pawn. Is just about to kill it. He has a pretty powerful knight on d3, and I'm assuming he was probably expecting something like bishop takes g7, rook takes d7, and life is good. And Bobby's queen needs to retreat, and then maybe even queen a check or knight f4 check, and Black has a fair amount of play in this position. So his opponent was probably kind of salivating over capturing the pawn. Fischer here executed a classic discovery attack here, or discovered attack, however you call it. He played bishop c7.
C7. Okay, wow.
And boom, the game is immediately over because now there is really no move. End of story. Rook e8 is absolutely unstoppable. Will you take on c7 with the queen, or you take on c7 with the rook, or you move the queen? You cannot stop the pawn promotion. So that was actually just a straight shot that just finished the game all at once.
Nice one. And so, what's the problem with bishop f6?
Uh, I don't know if there's necessarily a problem, but you lose the d pawn, and that's kind of our key component of our success. Now we can't really play rook e8
Oh,
anymore.
it's interference. Oh, okay, neat. Yeah, I get it.
We basically have an interference here and a discovery at the same time.
Nice.
So we block that really important strike against d7. Now, rook c7 or queen c7 are all. Now, what's the only thing that Black can do? Black can do what we call in chess spite check. Basically, a check you play where you've got nothing else to do. But unfortunately, after king h2, I don't think it makes any difference whatsoever. Now you can go knight e6, trying to survive. And oh, actually, wait, this is actually getting real tricky here. So maybe knight f4 is really not that bad.
Yeah.
Knight f4 is not that bad. I completely dismissed that move. Wow. Well, actually, after bishop f4, he has rook takes g7. So we do need to move the king. So the king needs to be moved. But the big question is, where do we go? And I think the answer is we go to g1.
Wait, let's start with the queen sacrifice. Can you sacrifice the queen?
You can sacrifice the queen. I've looked at that, but then you lose d7. It's kind of like
Oh, it's T7 thing again. Okay.
then your queen is still under attack. It's a little bit of a bummer.
Oh, yeah.
So okay, so I think it's really important to pick the right place for the king. Now, I don't like moves like king f1 usually, but I think in this particular case, that makes a lot of sense because you actually get to a square where you're not going to be checked. What I mean is, like, what can Black really do? Like, the reason I dismiss king h2 is after knight e6, sure, you can you can take there, but there is queen c6 check, even though I think this still loses after rook d6. But it does create some commotion and complications. Whereas if you just simply play king to f1, you no longer have to deal with that problem.
I heard someone say recently that when you're trying to convert an advantage, that counterplay is the number one killer of that. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, you always need to look for the counterplay and basically try to think for the other side. What will they do? They're not going to roll over and die. They're going to try to do something. So you always want to look at things like spy checks, making an unexpected check that you didn't plan for and stuff. Here, this finally ends because Queen C7 loses, Rook C7 loses, Queen A8, we promote again, loses. So now after that move, Rook takes E6, Queen still remains attacked, and whether you take on C7 or you don't take on C7 doesn't really make any difference. Rook
Sure.
A8 check is unstoppable. And if you take the rook, obviously the queen has a counter. So, cool little tactic by Mr. Fischer. Bishop C7, interference and discovery all at the same time.
I like it.
Now, the second game is it's actually a full game, and it actually has a little bit of a historical background. I think it's an exhibition game, meaning that it wasn't actually an official. It was done in some sort of I don't know, some sort of a national holiday, or it was just an exhibition game against Reuben Fine. And for most players, the name Reuben Fine does not really mean anything anymore because,
I'm thinking
you know,
Endgame for some reason. Is there any reason that?
yes, there's a game, Endgame book by Reuben Fine,
Okay.
a very, very famous Endgame book. Actually, one of the um, great Endgame books. I always recommend it. In fact, there was a recent revision by Paul Benko that made some of the analysis. Reuben Fine passed away in 1993.
Mm-hmm.
He lived a long life. He was actually a psychologist,
Huh.
a doctor, but his most important activity chess-wise is a tie for first place with Paul Keres in 1938 Avro tournament in Netherlands, where he was ahead of. If you look at the cross table here, Paul Keres was on tiebreaks
But we're
best.
not talking about that game though. We're talking about this one here with Bobby Fischer, right?
That's right, but
And
two
we and
gives
so
Ruben
he
Fine
doesn't
right
let him
there.
get to the end game. It sounds like probably right.
He doesn't. He doesn't.
Yeah,
But you can
cool.
see the great players that played here. Botvinnik was number 3.
Well, so
Uwe,
I can't
another world
I
champion.
can't see your screen. We're just looking at this one.
Oh, can I share my screen? Because you need to see this.
Well, I could, but the viewers wouldn't be able to see it.
Oh, bummer.
I'm not that well organized. We
Oh, okay,
cut me
okay.
some
Well, that's
slack
fine.
here.
So,
Yeah, we got to just look at this. I don't know how to share it.
no problem. Just so the viewers know, the reason I wanted to talk about Ruben Fine is 1938. Ruben Fine and Paul Keres won the strongest tournament of their time, where Alekhine, Uwe, Botvinnik, and Capablanca all played. They all finished behind. So
What should they Google if they're interested?
Ruben Fine.
But would that help them find the tournament though? Ruben find what?
Yes, yes, it'd be a Wikipedia entry, and you will see the Avro tournament 1938, where Paul Keres and Ruben Fine finished first in a tie for first.
I like it.
Actually, it was a great book about that event. It was when I was actually growing up and learning chess. It was I was probably what I don't know 13, 14. That's the book that I've studied quite a bit.
I like it. But we got to see
But
some movement on the board to keep viewers interested. So I know you got a game
that's
prepared.
right.
Let's see what you got to say about it.
Sure. Here, I'm a little bit of a chess history buff. Not too many people are, I guess. But
I would
here,
be interested if it was just me, but people like movement.
we've got ourselves a very interesting opening. Evans Gambit. And, I'm not really privy to Bobby Fischer playing too many gambits. So for the exhibition game, you probably want to get, some kind of excitement going. I suspect that was probably part of the decision
Sure.
for that gambit. Now, speaking of my opinion of this gambit, I always feel like these things are too complicated. So when somebody plays this against me, I just go bishop b6.
What? Really?
Yeah, I just don't take a pawn. It's
Huh.
just there's just too much excitement and confusion. And,
Huh.
I don't want to memorize all these long variations and stuff. People say, well, you got to take a pawn. It can't be a chicken, but I'd rather be a chicken here because, I look at this position here, and I know that in this position, my position is very stable. What can he possibly do to even threaten me with anything? I have a very, very easy setup to do. And the only attack they have against f7, I'm not really afraid of.
Huh.
So
Okay. How about that?
that's my take on the Evans Gambit. Anyway, some people do take the pawn, so there's nothing really terribly wrong about that. c3. Now, bishop needs to go. Bobby goes d4. So in this position here, there have been many, many, many different moves tried. Insofar as I remember, e takes d4 remains one of the better ones. And now here's the entire point of the gambit, castle.
We move the pawn to d4, it gets taken, and then we just let that happen? What's the deal?
Exactly, exactly. So the idea behind Evans' gambit is to sack the middle pawns, clear up the board for the bishops, and checkmate the king before it escapes. And if you actually look at this position, now, after all the excitement of winning the pawns, you probably realize, gee, maybe I shouldn't have taken all of that business. This does not look very safe. Knight g5, queen b3, up in the air. And here Ibn Fine made the move, probably losing the game. Now, the best defense would have been knight f6, in my opinion, counterattacking in the center, and after e5, something like knight e4. Now, the point being is that if you take on d4 now, then they're going to have a chance to play d5.
Exciting game. Yeah.
And this did not happen. So Ruben Fine, and again, in an exhibition game, sometimes you never know these things, but sometimes the grandmasters, they're kind of really, really strong players. And Ruben Fine, I'm quite sure, has been familiar with Evans' Gambit being top player in the 1930s when this game was popular.
Yeah.
He probably just decided, okay, well, let's just have some fun, entertain the crowd. So he played d takes c3, a third pawn take. Now the fun begins. Now you can see why pawn grabbing in the opening, moving pawns and not developing pieces back.
Bobby Fischer says, I don't need
Bobby
no
basically,
stinking pawns.
no stinking pawns. So Bobby goes for the throat. He goes to strike f7. How do we defend f7? Well, there's not that many good opportunities here. Queen e7 is played, defending the pawn.
Yep.
Bobby takes on c3. And here was the move played that basically lost the game, in my opinion. What do you do when you're attacked, you're undermanned, your pieces are not in the game, your king is in the center? If you can, it's a good idea to trade things off a bit, kind of blowing off steam. So you should have taken on c3 instead, Mr. Fine, and then played knight to f6.
But hey, bishops are better than knights. Everyone knows that.
True, but you need to castle. At this point, castling and getting the pieces out is a top priority. The way he played, he just never got a chance to castle.
Yep, yep.
So in this position here, there's nothing really super exciting here, but at least for a time being, Black is able to continue the game and maybe castle in the next turn. Instead, Ruben Fine made an obvious move. Knight f6, question mark. Why is that a bad move? Because after that move, knight d5 pretty much forces the game opening.
Ah.
Can we take on e4? We probably cannot take on e4. Can we take on e4? I think that loses probably a couple of different ways. Let's say knight takes f6, pawn takes, and then yes, we can take on f7, but do we really need this pawn? I'm thinking we should keeping the king in the center, warm and cozy, and rook e1 in the next move.
Mm-hmm.
So
I like it.
this looks rough. Maybe actually bishop b2 is even better because this way we're threatening bishop f6 and rook e1. So let him castle. Let's say he castles. Wow, what an exciting achievement. Now, after that moment here, you could see that the king's position is wide open. So very, very unlikely this is going to be a happy ending.
Makes sense.
So Rubenfine took on d5. He kind of played along with Bobby. Now e1 is still under control, so it seems like he's okay. And he goes knight to e5. Now, in these kinds of positions, the key is to open the files and get to the king before the king escapes. And this is how Bobby actually played this. Now, was there a better move? Let's say, could he have gone knight b8, for instance? Yes, but in that case, bishop a3 forces d6, and then after rook e1,
Right.
take, rook takes, queen takes or not. Um, I don't really know if anything is better here. If you look at this position, what a horrible show that is. You could see that all these pieces are at the bottom, no play, no counterattack. You just lose all of them one by one.
Right. Right. Game over.
Or maybe something more fun like this. Look at that move.
Ooh.
Yikes.
Oh,
Oh, and
wow.
now if you take with the pawn, you can lose the queen. If you take with the queen, another discovery. Hello there, check, dude. You got
Fancy.
moved to the corner, and another queen comes to the game. Wow. Not that good. So you can see the position is a total disaster if you go back to b8. No time for retreats. So Rubenfine goes into the middle, facing the music.
Sure. Occupy the center. Put up a good fight. Or at least try to.
Yeah. Well, the problem is, while the pieces are leaving the board, and there's going to be some trades, you can see that white actually completed development of pieces and black hasn't really started that much. Just got the queen and the bishop out, and everybody else is still standing in starting positions, getting ready for the game. And the game is almost over. Now, what do you do?
But he has these two
This is,
pawns, and he's good at the
he
endgame.
has the pawns. Totally, he has the pawns. I'm thinking what he should have done here. What would have been the best play? I I'm thinking that Queen E7 would have been probably not Queen G5. Queen G5 ended up losing. Let's say you go Queen E7. What can be done against that? The computer likes Queen F3, castle Queen G4. Look at that. Queen F3, and then Queen G4.
Okay, mate threat. Yeah.
Can we play F6?
Nope, can't do
Yes.
there.
G6 check. Can we play F5? Still a big no. Can we
Wait,
play
wait, wait,
G6?
wait. Hold on. So F5, D6.
Yeah.
I'm betting white wins that. I understand that part. I just want to see the whole thing. So king over. Oh, you're also threatening the rook. Yeah, right.
You got a double jeopardy here. You
Oh
got a queen
man,
loss and the rook loss and the queen promotion. How many points does that scoop up in one
I think it's 13 or 14. Yeah.
move? Cool. So you see that here the position is just a giant mess. Now, what do? I looked at this. Surely I like queen f3 and castle. I think this is fine. But even if you don't have that, if you just do something simple and not super sophisticated, like play d6, what can be done? You have to take, and then you take on g7, and then rook has to go to g8. And just out of curiosity, how many moves do you think black will last? It just doesn't look very survivable. No matter how you slice it or dice it, the king on e8 with all this pawn mess and the bishop kind of on the way of castling, and e file is going to be open sooner or later. So
Okay, but then he counterattacks. Wait, Queen G5. Oop, hold
yeah. Let's go get him. Queen G5. Yeah. Bummer. Lost F7 was check. I look at that. That was a nice try.
It's funny.
No, this position is a clear illustration how not developing pieces in the opening and hunting for pawns leads to. So what did Rubenfine do? Well, he has to protect the square g7. So he plays queen g5. And now the queen is a really critical piece here. Why? Number one, it protects g7. It also protects e7. And here, white probably wins a couple of different ways, but Bob makes a very spectacular move, h4.
Ooh.
And you say, what is he trying to do? What he's trying to do, he's trying to have the queen moved from the square g5, where it protects both e7 and g7, to a different square where it can only protect two of those things, one of those things, one out of two. So when Rubinstein took the pawn and Bobby takes on g7, now the castling dream is done. And after rook g8, the king is kind of left to its own devices. Every piece that around. Could he have taken only one? Yes, but it really wouldn't make any difference. So here is another puzzle by Bobby Fischer.
Okay.
If you
Okay.
look at this position here, the king on d8 has zero possible moves. Whenever you have a situation like this, you always have to take a little bit of an extra time and make sure you see, okay, I can checkmate him with bishop f6, if not for the queen. Can I get rid of the queen?
Well, this is something you said a while ago that really stuck with me. That a lot of tactics are kind of the remove the defender theme, essentially. So you have this target.
Absolutely.
This is a defender.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yep.
So, to be fair, I think in this position, removing the defender isn't really that necessary. Like, you can play queen b2, and it'll be still just about as bad for black, because you can't stop bishop f6 check. You have to sack the rook, and then the queen comes to g7, and here queen f8 is coming mate. What do you do to avoid this? You have to try to sneak away from here. You can't, though.
Well, the insight about how you solve these kind of things is still valid. It's identify the target and identify the defender, and that comes up an insane amount of the time.
That's right. Well, Bobby did something more spectacular. Queen b2 is kind of a very dry, matter-of-fact move. Like, hey, dude, you're dead. I'm going to play queen b2. You can't stop bishop f6. But there's no excitement in that move. And Bobby Fischer finished the game with excitement. You just go queen g3.
I like it.
Now what do? If you don't take the queen, queen takes you. So
But he's walking into a pin.
Really.
The rook's there.
Yeah, but what do you do with that pin? Your queen is hanging.
Yep.
So here you can't really do anything. You more or less have to take on g7, and then queen takes on h4, and you get checkmated in.
Yep.
A very nice game by Bobby Fischer.
Definitely. Cool stuff. And then the game he played, queen takes g3, right?
I think he resigned in a game.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, because you can't stop the mate. Queen g3, bishop f6 mate. So what did he do wrong in this game? Just kind of make a little summary here for people that would like to play this game. As far as I know, taking the pawn was definitely a no-no. This move. I analyzed this position multiple times over the years. There's a variety of ways to play here. You can play actually d6 here. I think, if memory serves me well, people used to do this position and played something like that.
Right.
Now, if you play d5, then you block the bishop. Knight g5, then he goes knight h6. If you go knight c3, I'm sorry, got away from me. After knight c3, what do? I think they go bishop g4. Let's double check with our friend Stockfish here.
Okay.
What does he say?
So if you're interested in playing a dynamic tactical opening, the Evans Gambit may be for you.
That's right. Knight a5. That's what Stockfish says. Knight a5. Getting rid of really annoying bishop. Bishop goes back to g3, and then a very careful move, a bishop g4, pinning down the knight. And you can see that the computer values this as slightly better. There's also 97 move that's probably realistic. Just developing the knight and getting your castling prepared.
Sure, yeah.
So, uh, apparently, after h3 castles, the computer values white's position slightly higher due to the fact that the center is pretty powerful. You've got black's pieces a little bit restrained. They can't really come out that easily. But at the same time, for people that don't mind defending, you got an extra pawn. There's no obvious mate. King is safe. So you can later, plan out something like, I don't know, c5 or c6, d5, or come back to c6 with the knight and try to play f5. So this is definitely a playable position.
What do you think
After
about
a while,
d3 instead of dx c3? The move it looks like
people did play that before. Yeah, it's definitely one of those things. Let's kind of throw
it looks like a mouse slip kind of a move.
d3.
Oops, mouse slip.
Probably playable. I think the computer likes queen d3, going after f7. Queen goes to f6, e5. Now, can we take on e5? We know that we can. Now we can't defend it except for the pawn move. And then bishop g5 is going to be beaten to a pulp.
Yeah, yeah. Interesting game, interesting opening. This is terrific.
Very exciting. So after e5, the only move you play is queen g6. You have to keep the game close. And I think it's fair to say that, yes, it's better than the game. No question about that. But at the same time, white still seems to have a good castles. Bishop takes g3. So this stuff isn't yet developed. The queen is under attack. Not too many comfy positions for the queen in this situation, but it looks like at least the game is not lost by any means, and it's playable.
Yeah. Awesome
Although the
stuff.
computer values it about 2/10 of a pawn.
Yeah. Well,
mild advantage.
This is great. I'm really enjoying this new series of Bobby Fischer games.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Should we call it a wrap for today? Yeah, I do too. Yeah.
Wrap it for the day.
Thank you so much, Coach Orgy. Yeah.
Thank you, Ryan.